city of Stockholm, which is actually the capital of Sweden, and is in fact the largest urban area in all of the Nordic countries, with the city currently having a population of around 1 million, whilst the metro population is around 2.4 million people. And from an outside look in, Sweden looks like the ideal place to live, even being statistically ranked one of the safest countries in the world. However, what a lot of the people currently living in and outside of Sweden are unaware of is the fact that gang rivalries have plagued the streets of Stockholm, resulting in the gun crime statistics in Stockholm being 25 times higher than other cities like London in 2022.
25 times higher than London, you know.
Europe's gun murder capital, as gang members would get their hands on guns like AK-47s and use them to attack rivals. The most dangerous of these rivalries, in fact, being the Shottaz and DP or Death Patrol gang feud, which has plagued the streets of a small town inside Stockholm.
I can't lie, if I call Zlatan Ibrahimovic right now, I won't lie, I'll get your head tapped.
Before I start this video, however,
Slumped
YouTube
over.
says only 5% of you are subscribed. So if you enjoy this content, feel free to subscribe as it helps out the channel. But without further ado, sit back and enjoy this video.
Den här bilen besköts i natt i en skottlossning i Hjulsta, Stockholm.
273 shootings and 40 have been killed so far. He died at the scene, emergency responders have said.
Säger man också, vi ser, jag är liv, ingen kan göra det jag gör, så jag är för att fortsätta så länge.
Bro saying at
July
16,
2015, a group of gang members
slapping
from
it off.
would be planning to rob a currency exchange, which was located around 23 minutes away. This robbery then took place on the 22nd of July 2015 and was somewhat successful, with the perpetrators running away with around $200,000. Now, following the robbery, it's rumored that the older members who had committed the robbery didn't give any money to a younger member known as Masla, as well as other youngers who were a part of the three
Are you
MST
doing a
gangs.
stage?
These youngers, in fact, were said
you're
to
not
have planned
feeding
out
a
the
man
entire
there.
heist. The youngers then began to demand the money.
Of course
from the
it's
person
gonna
who
go
had
left.
actually carried out the heist. This being a 19-year-old known as Izzy. Izzy denied them the money, resulting in the younger gang members getting angry. A day later, on the 24th of July,
Oh, so you're not touching the
2015,
paper.
a group of these youngers lured 19-year-old
That's
Izzy
my
to a
paper.
nearby forest, where he was shot dead by the youngers. This then resulting in the two groups of teens from Rinkeby beginning to rival it out, with Izzy's friends who had taken part in the heist, creating the Shottaz gang, whilst the group that sided with the younger members who weren't paid from the heist created the gang which later became Death Patrol. Just a day following the death of Izzy, the 17, Masla, who had felt betrayed that he wasn't given a cut of the heist, would be sitting in a car with his friends at a gas station when two men approached Masla, shooting several shots toward him, sadly ending in 16-year-old Masla being shot in the head and dying on the scene. A murder investigation was quickly launched, with police suspecting the brothers of Izzy to be the killers, as just under a day earlier, Izzy was gunned down, although it is believed that this was a retaliation for Izzy, who was killed just hours earlier. Following the extended wave of violence in Rinkeby, prominent gang members who were Masla's friends from the Death Patrol began to become more prominent in Stockholm. These including Shobra, Talan, Musa, and Makalele, who were all close friends of Masla and became
Oh, really?
prominent
This
under
is
the Death
in-house
Patrol
beef
name.
that
All
just
four of these members
exploded.
being in and out of jail in the months following July 2015, eventually all being out in 2016, subsequently resulting in the beef being quiet for a few months. In 2016, members from the Shottaz gang began to release music, a prime example being Yasin, who released a track titled My Hood. This currently sitting on around 8 million views. He then followed this release up with a track featuring JB, or Jafar Bin, who is affiliated with Shottaz, as well as ZE. Within this song, JB can be heard mentioning the area he was from, this being Rinkeby, which was basically split into two parts that violently beefed one another. This song also sitting on around 8 million views. Shortly after the release of these tracks, however, the core members of the Death Patrol gang would return from prison, leading to the end of 2016 and 2017 being one of the deadliest times in Rinkeby, which is crazy, as Rinkeby only had a population of around 19,000 in
20,000 people, but
2016.
they're just gone mad.
Say hi to a host season's break. Book now and save in our big 2025 sale.
Suck your mother. How dare you?
On the 2nd of December 2016, a member of the Shottaz gang, known as Indiana, as well as his brother, Smokey, who had supposedly come to the area for a few days and wasn't directly involved in the gang politics within Rinkeby. Anyways, the pair would be in a cafe in Rinkeby at around 10 p.m. Two masked Death Patrol members then approached the cafe after noticing Indiana and his brother. The attackers began to let off shots toward both Indiana and Smokey, who both ran into a washing room
Caught man
within
in
the
a
cafe,
cab.
sadly getting trapped. This being when the attackers got closer and shot both Indiana and Smokey Smokey dead, with it even being believed that Smokey didn't have any affiliation to the Shottaz and DP feud, but was with his brother. An investigation was then launched, although police would fail to turn up conclusive evidence. This double murder has remained unsolved. Rest in peace, both Indiana and Smokey. Just weeks after this double murder,
two
on the
brothers,
13th of December
rest in
2016,
peace.
members of the Shottaz would retaliate, noticing a core member of the Death Patrol gang known as Musa, shooting him whilst he was sitting in a car. Musa was hit 4 times, however survived as he was actually wearing a bulletproof vest, which is crazy to think about. Police arrived
Oh,
on
they're
the scene
slapping
and
in
discovered
Sweden,
the
you
car
know.
Musa was in, riddled with bullets,
What?
as well as 2
That
AK-47s.
my man, yeah?
Weeks
Alright,
after this
I've got
shooting,
set up
at the
for
start
my
of
man.
2017, a man rumored to be linked with
They're
the
gonna
Death Patrol
fire
was
it at
shot
me.
dead in Rinkeby, with it being believed that he was lying in the street, suffering gunshot wounds to the head. Rest in peace. Now, 2017 was actually the start of the rise of the drill scene coming out of Stockholm, with rappers like Yasin releasing the track.
Bruv, in
which
Rinkeby,
translates
niggas
to
even
step.
reaching
Within the song,
30.
He mentioned that him and others only step when they are
No,
strapped,
no,
meaning
I
they
don't
only
think,
go
man, I reached
outside
30,
whilst being
man.
armed with guns for protection. Jafar Bin, who like Yasin also started to affiliate with the Shottaz, released a track titled Cash Machines, with rappers Rigo and A-Key, this track amassing 1.5 million views, really showing that both Jafar Bin and Yasin were the most popping rappers in Stockholm. However, due to them affiliating with the Shottaz, in 2017 they would find themselves in the middle of Rinkeby's deadly gang war. On the 8th of August 2017, rapper Jafar
Oh,
Bin,
you got
who
a
had
man
started
that you
to
live with,
associate
man.
himself with the Shottaz, would be noticed
got a
by
man
3
that you
members
live
of the
with.
Death Patrol.
Trust me.
Jafar was then run up on by the rivals.
The people you
He was
live with
punched,
try to
kicked,
take you up there or
recorded,
down
with this
there
recording
in the
going
fucking
viral on
earth,
social
like.
media. The Death Patrol members then
Think about
urinated
it.
on Jafar's face, all on recording, which is wild. Within the video, they can be heard shouting disrespectful things toward him. However, luckily Jafar would make it out with his life. It's rumored that following this attack, Yasin would also be run up on by a feared Death Patrol member known as Makalele, being beaten up badly, but luckily also making it
I
out.
like Makalele.
Following this, however, the
That
police
you
would be
look
closely
certain.
watching the core members of the Death Patrol, waiting for them to slip up so they could be arrested in an unrelated murder for contract plot that involved multiple Death Patrol members. Now, before I continue, in order to give some context to the sentence received by some of Sweden's most feared gang members, Sweden actually has a different approach to offenders. They believe in changing the prisoners for the better, rather than punishing them, resulting in Sweden having one of the lowest reoffending rates. This factor then means that
Actually
some
try and
people can be
rehabilitate.
sentenced to a few years for murder. In October 2017,
What?
however, a group of Death Patrol members were arrested in a suspected case that saw them killing for money.
So if you catch a body in Sweden, they give you 3-4 years, because they think that's enough to rehabilitate you.
There was still not enough
Yeah, alright.
and evidence to charge the Death Patrol members, leading to them being let free in 2018 after a not guilty
Yeah,
plea,
alright.
leading to the Death Patrol members continuing to wage war on the Shottaz gang. It's rumored that around this time, a younger subset from the Shottaz emerged, this being known as FLG, which is an acronym which translates to filterless guys, and is believed to contain some of the most dangerous younger gang members from the Shottaz. On the 23rd of October 2017, Masla's younger brother, Machiavelli, who was a member of the Death Patrol, would be noticed by a group of Shotters in Rinkeby. The Shotters then retrieved an automatic rifle, shooting Machiavelli in the chest before fleeing seconds later. Machiavelli was then admitted to hospital, and luckily survived.
They
as
might
he
not
was
play
wearing
out there,
a
you know.
vest. Just a few months following this,
They
on
catch you
New
there,
Year's Eve
bunning it.
2017, a Death Patrol member would be gunned down in Rinkeby, with his attackers fleeing, and still being free even today. This then subsequently resulted in 2018 and 19 being extremely deadly years within the rivalry. On the 31st of December 2017, during the early hours of the morning, a Death Patrol member known as Karar would be sitting in a car garage within Rinkeby. Whilst in the garage, rival Shottaz members would notice him, arming themselves with guns and walking toward him. Karar was then shot 8 times by the rivals, sustaining wounds to the head, with police being called by bystanders. Upon arriving on the scene, emergency services tried to save his life. However, he was sadly pronounced dead. Around this time, the younger members of the Death Patrol
They're
began to
gonna
plot
rival
out their
you now.
revenge for their
POA,
fallen friend
P.
Karar, and just 1 week later,
Alright,
the Death
P,
Patrol
cousin.
youngsters would find their revenge. On the 8th of January 2018, just a week following the death of Karar, an alleged Shottaz affiliate known as Hamza, or Peps, would be at a shopping center in Rinkeby. Whilst out, Hamza and a few friends went to a nearby pizza and kebab restaurant, where they planned to stay for a few hours. Whilst in the pizza and kebab restaurant, a younger 16-year-old member aligned with the younger Death Patrol gang would notice Hamza, this younger member being Shaki, who was armed and ready to kill. Shaki then entered the shop before retrieving his
Shaki,
gun
you
and
know.
shooting Hamza Yasin twice in the neck and head, killing him on the scene. Shaki then fled moments later.
Bad
An
boy.
investigation was launched, with police beginning to
That's a
watch
young
Shaki, who
driller.
was later arrested after police felt they had enough evidence to convict him. Later in
Young
2018, Shaki was found guilty of the murder and was given 3 years for it, later being released.
3
in
years on a
2020.
rascal
Following
M.
this murder, in February 2018,
That's why they're dealing with man in
prominent figures
Sweden,
within this war
you know.
began to make music, this being
I know these
who
youths
released
are
a track
laughing.
titled Problems, just to the death of Hamza. With this song currently sitting on around 230,000 views,
Man, they
Einar
did
was
3
actually
years for M
associated
in
with
London.
the Darlin Network,
Fair.
an organized crime group based around Darlin within Stockholm. However, he later became affiliated with the Death Patrol when his music career began to really take off. During 2018, the rapper associated with the Shottaz, known as Jafar, would have his phone tapped by police in Sweden, leading to his arrest. He confessed to multiple crimes, including possession of firearms. Police then found guns belonging to him, as he had seemingly told someone on the phone about the exact location of a stash of guns, eventually being given 4 years. Weeks following this, Shottaz associate and rapper Yasin, Foy, and another member known as Faye would be stopped by police whilst having guns at a gas station, with the three taking off and fleeing the scene. Yasin managed to escape, throwing his gun away, which police then recovered. Yasin
Well
even
done.
went on to mock
Cut.
the police for
Now
not
when
catching
Brad
him
had
when they
only
could.
got a
However,
move
after releasing a few
quickly.
music videos, Yasin would be arrested and charged for being in possession of firearms when escaping police, eventually going on to be sentenced to a few years for the incident. Now, remember how I said the younger Death Patrol members were the only members really out of jail in 2018? Well, in 2019, Makalele, who was a core member of the original Death Patrol gang, would be out, and often was sliding onto rival Shottaz in Rinkeby. However, in June 2019, Makalele, as well as other Death Patrol members, would find themselves on the other side of the law after killing 2 prominent members of the Shottaz in an entirely different country.
Imagine
In
they
June
say smokers are
2019,
skinny.
3 members of the Shottaz gang,
Skinny
including
what?
Faye, who was actually the manager of Yasin, along with 2 other members known as Gucci and Hoods, would travel to Copenhagen, Denmark. It's rumored the trio went to Denmark to discuss music with local rappers. But upon arriving, however, they learned that they had in fact been set up by Death Patrol member Makalele, as well as other Death Patrol members. The 3 were ambushed in Copenhagen and were shot at by Makalele, who was armed with automatic weapons. Both Faye, as well as Hood,
He
began to
done
flee
them
the scene,
dirty.
making it a few hundred feet.
Pretending it
before
was a
Faye
music
shot in the
link
leg,
up.
falling to the ground
Like
and
Ox
bleeding
was
out,
there.
sadly dying seconds later.
He-
Hoods then went on to flee unharmed. The Death Patrol members weren't done there, however, and turned their attention to Gucci, who was shot over 12 times all over the body,
He-
sadly
oh,
also
he
dying on the
Gucci.
scene. After killing 2 Shottaz members, the Death Patrol members fled the scene, being seen on CCTV driving away from the scene, leading to another murder investigation being launched. The car used in the double murder was later found, with it being
Oh,
believed
so they
that
did
the
this
assailants
drill
attempted to set it
outside
on
of
fire
Sweden,
and close
in
the
another
door,
country.
leading to the fire being extinguished.
Yeah, that
3
must.
days later, Danish police raided an apartment in Aarhus, which is another city in Denmark. In the apartment, Makalele was arrested. Following this, the other attackers were extradited from Sweden to Denmark in order to face the charges. As remember, the crime was committed in Denmark,
That
not
man got
Sweden,
grabbed, you
so
know.
chances are they would receive a way harsher punishment. This proved to be right, as in 2020, Makalele, as well as the other members, were given life sentences for the
Aye.
double murder. Rest in peace, both Faye and Gucci.
So in
Now,
Denmark, they
following
give
this
out life
double murder,
sentences.
Einar, who I spoke about earlier,
not in
would be
Sweden.
making a serious noise within the Swedish drill scene, releasing tracks like The Cat in the Hood, which was released in January 2019, and quickly built a buzz in
R.I.P.
Sweden,
Einar,
garnering around
too.
13
He was
million
a good
views.
rapper.
He then dropped a track titled Cheating, featuring a rapper known as K27, this sitting on just over 5.5 million views, just proving that Einar was really taking over the scene. In November 2019, Yasin was released from prison following that 2018 arrest and sentencing. Perhaps following his release, Yasin realized he had to make it big in the Swedish drill scene, as following his release in December 2019, he dropped the track titled DSGIS, which sits on over 20 million Spotify streams. He followed this up a few weeks later with a track titled XO, this garnering around 40 million streams. And from an outside in, it looked as if Yasin had really made it out of the streets. However, what fans didn't know was that he was still really deeply entrenched in the gang politics in Rinkeby. In December
One foot in,
2019,
one foot out.
a friend of Yasin's and fellow Shottaz member
Shit.
known as Poi would be found
One
in his
foot in,
car
one
a car
foot
park
out,
within
man.
Rinkeby, suffering multiple gunshot
know about
wounds
Nina.
all over his body. Emergency services quickly arrived on the scene and did their best at saving him. However, sadly, he was pronounced dead minutes after being taken to hospital. The police in Stockholm went on to arrest multiple people, and what drill fans weren't expecting is that Yasin himself would be arrested in a car for the murder of his friend Poi. Yasin wasn't the only one arrested, and multiple other Shottaz gang members were apprehended hours following the murder, with a large investigation taking place. Yasin was
So they
even found to
backdoored
have
their
gunshot
boy.
residue on
He-
him. Following a full trial, however, in 2020, Yasin and the other Shottaz members were released due to a lack of evidence to find anyone involved guilty, with the Shottaz as well as Yasin being back on the street streets of Rinkeby. Rest in peace, boy. Now, remember how I said Einar was blowing in the Swedish drill scene? Well, going into 2020, he had managed to gain himself a few enemies from opposing gangs. These enemies then planning to find Einar in the streets, plotting out an attack on him. It was actually Einar's old friends from the Darlin network that would do this. This, of course, being the rapper Haval, who was at one point Einar's friend. And on the 15th of April 2020, Einar was lured unsuspectingly to an apartment where his rivals were waiting.
Back door. Close that back door, B. It's Pete.
On the 15th of April 2020, Einar would be lured into a car by the rapper Haval, as well as the leader of the Darlin network. Einar was then driven to an apartment in Stockholm. After a few minutes of driving, the gang members reached the agreed destination with Einar, who was unaware he was walking into a trap laid out for him. When arriving at the destination, Einar was held captive and was punched, kicked, and was told to dress up in women's clothing, as well as to drink out of a dog bowl. All of this being recorded and pictured, Einar was then robbed of his chains and guns, and was let free hours later, luckily making it out alive. The videos and pictures of Einar being humiliated would later be released in May 2020. However, this didn't really affect his music career, as he was consistently doing millions on every song he released, even releasing a song with Haval, who had allegedly set him up only a day after Einar was kidnapped and was humiliated. Haval and other gang members were then later arrested and charged in connection. Following this, in May 2020, Einar responded to the kidnapping on an Instagram live. Just a few months following the kidnapping, Haval's little brother was shot and killed in Stockholm, with Einar being the #1 suspect, even releasing a song that hinted toward his involvement in the murder. In August 2021, two FLG members, who were younger Shottaz gang members, were fed information that DP members were in an apartment in Hulsta. The two FLG members then set out on electric scooters toward the apartment. The Death Patrol members knew that the FLG members were coming, however, and waited on a balcony for their arrival. Upon arriving, the two FLG members were shot multiple times. A 26-year-old died seconds after being hit, whilst a separate 22-year-old was taken to hospital, where he luckily survived. This 22-year-old was later arrested and charged, as he had come to the apartment armed with a gun, and had intentions on killing the rival Death Patrol members. Rest in peace. In September 2021, Einar released a track titled Dance. This currently sitting on around 36 million views. Just a month later, in October 2021, he released a song that roughly translates to Stuck in the Hood, this amassing just over 16 million streams, really showing how prominent Einar was in the scene. It is rumored that police wanted Einar to cooperate in the case in which he was kidnapped, although Einar refused, eventually allegedly being forced to by police on the 21st of October 2021. Sadly, however, only a few hours later, Einar would be shot dead by rival gang members. On the 21st of October 2021, Einar would be hanging with two others in a relatively wealthy area in Stockholm. The trio were allegedly out for a smoke session before returning to Einar's home. Suddenly, however, two masked gunmen approached Einar before shooting multiple times toward him. Both friends would flee after the shooting. Sadly, Einar was hit multiple times all over the body, dying on the scene, with some even taking pictures of his dead body after he had been shot. With it being believed that Einar had money on his head, many theories surround the death of Einar, with some believing he was set up, whilst others have differing opinions. His killers, however, are yet to be arrested and charged. Either way, rest in peace, Einar. One of the people allegedly arrested in connection to the murder of Einar was his friend Dumla, who was even with him the night he was shot. Dumla was eventually released under investigation, but later in 2022, he was also shot dead. Rest in peace, Dumla. As of most recently, Shaki, who was that younger Death Patrol member who served time for killing a Shottaz affiliate known as Hamza, would release a track which roughly translates to The Scorers. This track is filled with disrespectful lyrics. Within this, Shaki says that he is willing to go back to jail and risk life imprisonment, as well as stating that he was 16 years old and putting in more work than his ops. As remember, Shaki was only 16 when he caught the murder case. In May 2024, Shaki followed this track up with another song titled Prime Time. Within this, Shaki mentioned that he was smoking Peps Pure, without any mixture, Peps or Hamza being the dead rival that Shaki was sentenced for killing. It's since believed that both Yasin and Haval have moved away from Stockholm and are focusing on their rap career elsewhere, which is always positive.
Sometimes you gotta get out the hood, man.
Millions of views on almost every song they released, and staying in Sweden would have only resulted in them either dying or going to jail. Now, since the murder of Dumla, not many other public incidents have occurred within the streets. If you have learned anything from this video, however, make sure that it is to stay out of the streets, as this gang lifestyle that you see these rappers living often only leads to jail or death. Example being Einar, who didn't distance himself from the gang. By the time he realized he should have, it was too late. Oftentimes these rappers have lost most of the people around them to the gang life. My thoughts, prayers, and condolences are with the family and friends of anyone discussed within this video. Rest in peace. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. As I said at the start of the video, only 5% of people are subscribed, so feel free to subscribe.
Turkey still. It's Turkey. But it's going off in Sweden though. It's definitely going off. It's going off. Them man are getting 3 years for a body too. You feel me? So it's only gonna get worse. But yeah, man. Love my people. Just pre this with me and drop some comments in the comment section, innit? We live.